in terms of a great starting point, because I think for a lot of people is understanding the process and how the different teams come together. So I'd love to just get a quick sort of brief intro about your particular each of you involvement in the creation of Runnin.
Sarah?
Well, I was thinking maybe Reggie starts since he was the beginning.
Yeah.
You want to start with the beginning?
Sure. Let's start at the beginning. Humanity since 160,000 years ago. I was at I think I was at this Levi's jacket or whatever for Jacquard. I don't know, they had like this tech jacket that had Bluetooth and you could like do commands by rubbing your fingers over these like conductive threads. Nothing ever happened with it, of course, because it's too weird. But while I was there, someone who was working on your team or knew someone parallel to your team mentioned this large, is it okay to call it large-scale volumetric?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I heard about this large-scale volumetric studio, and I was really excited because I had done some capture, but it was always limited to a very, very small size. And so he mentioned the size of the studio, and I was immediately intrigued. And then flash forward a few months, I had a music project called Wahada, and I had this idea when I was at I just had this idea that I wanted to release a music video in VR form, but I wanted to be able to do it without a lot of editing, but use volumetric as a means. Generally, when you're limited to size, you have to just kind of place things, like capture things and place them in the environment. And so I wanted to be able to just naturalistically do music and record that and then use that to make some kind of an experience. So I got a meeting with Intel. And they were just very amenable to it. I was very surprised. I was just like, I don't know, just let's see if they're into it. And they were into it. And that's kind of how it started.
Yeah, exactly. And so when we first started talking to Reggie about this project, Intel Studios, which had just opened its doors, basically we were 4 or 5 months old, kind of still figuring out how we fit in the whole piece. And I had a business development there. And so once we kind of understood what the implications were and that we could actually create an incredible collaborative piece with Reggie and using some of his music, we were really excited to take it to fulfillment. And that was when Adam also came on. So
Yeah, I jumped in, which was pretty by chance and luck, really. It's
really
kind
was,
of like
yeah.
how this world, I like to think that's how the world works. Everything just happens for a reason. I'd been previously working on some music experiences with another creator for the last few years, which had done quite well. And so this was kind of a natural fit for me. And really, it was a job that really required somebody in my role to bring everything together because we had so many different components for the project. You know, you've got the Goliath of Intel, you've got obviously Reggie and his creative, you've got a director who also is creative, and then we also got Tim and his team over at Life Orange, being developers. And that's quite a lot of people that you've got to bring together to get a clear objective to a creative fine finale, which we did do. And it was a journey, but one that really kind of came together through everyone with the same intention. And I think we're pretty proud of what we created.
So I was working with Intel a little bit, freelancing, using their volumetric capture studio. And at some point, they're like, hey, so we have this project that Reggie Watts is doing. Would you like to be a part of this? I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, I have these people that, one person does this amazing audio work, Ryan McGee, and then Sagar Patel is this other guy who does this beautiful shader art. So if you saw Runnin with all like the particles just flowing everywhere beautifully, mathematically, that's all Sagar's compute system that he built in just to make it so fast. And so it's like, okay, well, I have this team. We could, we talked to Dave Smitty, who is at Intel, still at Intel, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
heads up for product development.
Yeah, and so we were working on a previous project, and he said, hey, pitch something. And so we had this idea where we just want to take this universe, completely auto-reactive, and mix it in with what you and Kira were doing to have a bunch of dancers and the audio reactive component and the shader component kind of come together so we could have just this interesting music video collaboration. And so we kind of brought this together really fast. And
4 months?
Yeah, about 4 months. I think at some point we were churning for 2 months just nonstop, but because we had Sundance as our like the date we have to have this finished by. And so, yeah, it was just came together and made this happen. And
Christmas was great.
Christmas is great, yeah. But none of it would have happened if you guys didn't step up. And that was just, yeah, I was pretty happy with what we initially had.
Yeah.
So.
Oh. Well, yeah, the space is really enormous and really impressive. The volume, it's like 10,000 square feet. I think it's the largest capture studio in the world. And so, one of the things, so people often are seeking realism when they do volumetric capture. And so I wanted to ask about the style. And there's you can certainly tell who everyone is, but there's a beautiful, it's abstract, as you're talking about, this sort of abstract, both the individual dancers and the performances. So when you talk about the stylistic decision to use capture, obviously to capture the movement, but then to also give it this other artistic element and abstract style.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, it started with, I'm a big fan of contemporary dance, all dance forms really, and I wanted, I always just think music videos always lend themselves naturalistically to dancers, and to be able to have 12 bodies in a space dancing in real time and being captured, and being able to work off of each other physically is something that there would be a discrepancy if you just placed people in an environment. Obviously, there is a little bit of that there, but what you see happening are people dancing generally in real time, and so that human communication is kept there. But obviously, the realism, the hyper-realism is like dedicated. I mean, you're limited with processor power, and then also just how much resolution, how far away the cameras are, and so forth. So for me, it was about the movement, and what's great about dance, it's like you're getting the expression of a body. You don't necessarily need that really intense close-up of facial expressions going on. And so when that was one of the challenges that was presented, and when I saw like some of the first mock-ups, I was like, that's great. It looks great. Like, I love the abstract nature of it, and it really fit the spirit. So yeah, it was just nice to see that. I will say that what was a great moment is adding a 2D moment in there inside of it. How many people have seen it? Okay, cool. That's all. No one else should see it, just those people. But there is a moment where these kind of like these screens come into the environment, and you get to see a 2D kind of music video. And that to me is like a very music video moment. So you get this high res, here are some faces, and then those kind of disappear, and then you're back in this beautiful abstracted movement voxel world.
Well, from a producer's perspective, working with someone like Reggie who likes to work with imperfections in digital media is a dream come true, because it's obviously one of the biggest challenges that I've been lucky to do it twice. I used to work in film, and we scratched film, which is the worst thing you could possibly do, and the director said, "Does it look cool?" And I was like, "Yeah," and he's like, "Great." And so working with Reggie, and Sarah can talk more about the tech side, but we are limited and have been up until recently. We're making some changes, but the fidelity of the final image is not going to be as crisp and perfect as you would see us in real life. So, and leading on for what Tim and Cigar did, it's like you take those imperfectionalities and you work with them in a creative sense. And we don't use pixels, we use voxels, and those voxels are what we use to play with on this piece, where those imperfectionalities turned into shader techniques, right, Tim?
Right.
Yeah, and that's what Cigar did to kind of like. Let's forget about making it look perfect. Let's take it, break it apart, and form it back together in all these crazy different ways. And I don't know how many shaders we ended up using on this piece, but it was quite extensive.
It was a lot of work.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. But I think,
Yeah.
from the volumetric side, that's something we've been fighting against, but we're sort of obviously keep working towards on the tech side to improve.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that photorealism is a term that's thrown around a lot. What does it mean for something to be realistic, right? When you look at black and white film and silent film, when in the beginning of more of the entertainment industry, everyone thought, well, wow, this is incredible. And I think that one of the challenges for virtual reality in general is that people look at 4K and they're expecting a straight translation over into virtual reality. Like, I just want to be in the 4K film. But none of the headset technologies out there can even come close to handling that type of data. And so having creators like Life Orange and Reggie who can really push the bounds on, let's take these data, fundamentally it's processor power limitations on headsets, and run that in a different direction, right?
Yeah.
Well, speaking to that too, I think it would be interesting to talk a little bit about, just as I think for many people who haven't been into a studio, just how many cameras it actually takes to capture the dancers.
Three.
Yeah,
It's actually it's just two really, really cool ones.
Yeah. Two cool ones and one like,
your
okay.
phone.
And an iPhone, yeah.
That's right. So Intel Studios is has over 100 cameras, 100 sensors on the dome. When we shot with Reggie, we had 76 5K cameras running. Today it has 100 8K cameras running. And so the system overall is capturing and throws about for Reggie's piece, 3 terabytes of data per minute, and now we're upwards towards 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, I think every frame, when we originally got it, the raw single frame of a 30 frame per second clip was about 20 megs. And that was just your raw point cloud file with no optimizations whatsoever. And then they were able to get it down at some point to about 200 kilobytes, just based on optimization and,
Yeah, we have
having a
a
limited
proprietary
color.
compression format called Vola that we were able to leverage in order to get the number of dancers and it ended up being 27 gigs of point cloud and dancers in that piece, and so it's nothing to shake a
At some point,
stick
we
at.
had to go to Ryan. So Ryan is the owner of Life Orange. At some point, we had to go to his gym to download all the Vola data, just because it was the fastest internet connection that we had in this area. And we were just like, go, get it, all right, run, go. No. But at some point, that got more manageable because we would just get hard drives and stuff.
I never knew this story. That's crazy.
Yeah.
You were sneaking into a gym.
Well, it was his gym. I mean, yeah.
Oh, it's his gym.
Yeah,
Okay, that's
well,
different.
It's part of the membership.
Yeah, oh, right,
Yeah.
of course, yeah.
Wow. So, given that setup and, with an idea of what you want to achieve, how do you, working with Kira, how do you direct those dancers? Kira Benzing is also
Yes.
a director who's not here on the project. So what do you tell them, because they're used to working in much different environments?
Yeah, well, what was great about getting the 2 choreographers, they're good friends of mine that I've known for many, many, many years, and I really love their work, and I'd worked with them in other capacities. So really, it was just up to them to create the choreography they wanted to, and they talked between each other to create the choreography they wanted to. So, because I love, when you're working with anybody, I love the compartmentalization. I mean, obviously, it's collaborative, but I like that you trust everybody doing what they do. And in that case, I just knew they were going to come up with something great. They would talk with each other. I didn't even need to see the choreography. I think Kira might have seen a little bit of it. Anyhow, it was set, and we knew that we were just going to capture, and it's all live capture. They just run it, and so forth. And so for Kira, it was about how long we could shoot, and then we'd have to stop down, and then go again. And so the choreographers knew that as well, so they kind of modified the choreography to those time limits. And so she was keeping all of that together and making notes live, real time, as she was seeing things, and that was a great take, blah, 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 blah. And her job really was to kind of keep track of all of that and to keep it together and then kind of creatively meld all of that together. And that's kind of how it ran. It was kind of in a way relatively simple. I mean, any project I'm working on, I want it to be the simplest as possible. I want to eliminate as much friction as possible in my limited understanding of engineering and technical aspects. But I think it's important for artists to understand the technical aspects so that you're not thinking in an unrealistic way that hinders production, or that you're demanding something that production's we just don't have it. I would rather just let something go and just get it to flow.
That made it so much easier for us because you had this understanding of the pipeline and the restrictions, limitations. Made it such a huge help to have someone like that, to know that, Because really, if you're freelancing and you do some projects, there's some people that they might think they know it, but they might not know it, and it sometimes can raise the amount of work that you're doing. But someone who's,
That's one way of putting it.
it's true. But it's the less friction, the better, and I think this is a really good project for that.
Well, and this is a medium too that's so much, it's evolving, ever evolving, and so I'm also would love to hear about sort of takings, discoveries from this project that you're going to take perhaps into the next project with technology? And I assume you'll do another VR music video. I hope you will. Are there ideas you started to develop or you discovered they're like, oh, we can expand on this. I can do something else with this.
Yeah, well, I don't know how much we can talk about.
Yeah, we'll keep it on the download.
Okay. Yeah, we're talking. I would say that in general, without giving it really too much away, and I'll leave it up to them to say how they want to say it. But yeah, for me, I think what was exciting about doing this project was to just, for me, it's more like I just want an excuse to see if an idea works. And it's kind of an expensive thing to try, but I had a feeling that it would be a good-natured feeling project that would translate into something fun, and because I want people to have a reason to be in a headset. I don't want them to just be in the headset because someone says there's this technology we're using. You got to check it out. It doesn't translate. If it's not enjoyable, it's not enjoyable. It doesn't matter if it's live theater or if it's VR. So I think to that end, I think that it created a nice experience, and for me, I feel like a music video is a perfect way to kind of optimize, innovate the idea of entertainment or storytelling in VR, because it's so atmospheric, and the music is locked off in stereo, and you're not having to worry about positional audio and all the ambisonic and all that stuff. It's just straight locked off traditional stereo, like you're at a silent disco. That is like the bulk of the experience. So you can forgive some imperfections and weirdnesses and limitations to the technology, and if you have developers that are savvy, they'll use that to work with the sonics. And so for me, going forward, make it a little bit simpler and to scale in a way that evolves, but realistically keeps it within a doability range.
I think simplicity is definitely, you're right, the evolution continues, but it's funny how after doing 4 experiences on this one in particular, I was like, wow, okay, this completely changed my understanding of what people want. Because I think over the last few years we've gone from like VR being the empathy machine. Last year, I was at Sundance with a piece called Chorus, which was a 6-person music experience. Super awesome, super cool, but quite a lot of mechanics involved for people to actually understand how the piece works, and some people came out the piece going, I don't know what I was supposed to be doing, and that's really not what you want to be hearing. You want people to just go in and lose themselves. And one thing we found with Runnin is we had a key mechanic that we programmed in for all the way through, and literally the week before Sundance we pulled it out because we realized that even though we were trying to give people more to do, we were hindering their enjoyment in the space, and we took that mechanic out. And those that have tried it, as you know, you're basically just dancing, moving your arms and clicking a button, which sounds really simple, but it's so effective because you're not having to think about what you're doing. You're just enjoying the piece for what it is, which is music in a club, having a dance party. And that, to me, was amazing because I went to Sundance a little bit apprehensive because I was like, well, are they going to be questioning why we haven't done this and why we're not? And suddenly realized after the first sitting, it's like, wow, we've got a hit because people don't have to think. And I think it's a constant evolution. I was surprised myself. 4 years of doing it, and I suddenly was like, I've done the most simplistic project I've ever done in terms of mechanics, but the most fun for everybody.
Which then also went on to win the Best of Interactivity at South by Southwest.
Yeah,
and like the only way you interact is moving around, which is really interesting to think about. But at the same time, I have like tons and tons of videos of people dancing in it, and I just don't know that many experiences that actually like bring people to dance, including my mother. She's my favorite.
Yeah, and I will say that there's something that I had a theory, or an inkling about, which is what I like to call ambient VR, and there's something about like what I would get is like the record store. We built in this kind of these bookend, kind of an anchor point to be in this record store. Complete with, I'm so glad we put that bell in there. I don't know if people register it, but that bell, like you came into the store and you hear the little jingling bell. It's like, I'm in a record store. It's just like, oh, such details. But being in that record store, people would say, like, I just wanted to hang out in that record store for a long time. Or people would say, I just wanted to be in that club for longer. I just want to hang out and just explore the club. And so I think that what's great about that is it doesn't take much. It just takes the right vision and space to make people feel welcome. And on top of that, to mention the volumetrics, or you can do anything with the data, and we've translated into, I guess, four different formats, I suppose. From the traditional VR We have the Looking Glass volumetric display. And there's a new 360 coming out, and then a traditional flat. That's exciting to me.
I really hope that there is a VR album. That would be really fantastic sometime in the near future.
Thankfully, I hope that too, and Reggie hopes that too.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
that the likelihood of
For
that
sure.
happening is
Yeah.
pretty high.
Well, yeah, we'll figure it out.
That would be.
You'll be seeing something, I think.
It's coming.
Write this down.
It's
I
coming.
know. Just the right amount of agency.
Yeah.
What did you feel like when you did this?
Research, amazing. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for creating the piece and for coming here to talk to us about it.
And thank
Yeah.
you very much as well. I mean,
Yeah.
this event, for those of you that don't know, the fact that this event exists and is really leading the charge in terms of having an XR showcase outside necessarily of a film festival and really creating a place where it's clear that this content has a real audience, it's fantastic. So thank you, Jacqueline, for all the work you're doing in that space.
Oh, thank you.